That is truly, seriously, in my top 10 of stories we've run.
That. Mm-hmm.
Oh, his granddaughter Ashley was not immediately convinced it was actually the signature.
Sure.
But after a brief comparison with some of her grandmother's old handwriting, she was sold.
It's one of those things you can't believe at first. You're like, no, that can't be it. It can't be it. The mother knew it once. They both had tears and goosebumps when they saw it. His daughter says it was her mother's way of coming back to them. They plan to frame that dollar bill. You saw there, he had it kind of in that plastic protector to make sure it's not in his wallet to be spent ever again. Great story. Great story. One very sad story from this holiday weekend that we're continuing to follow is the multi-victim drowning in Houston County.
Jennifer Hines joins us now for East Texas News at 5. And Jennifer, we're told the family was on a canoeing trip and they just never returned.
Yeah, that's right. Searchers recovered the last of 4 bodies today, including a 6-year-old child. Tonight, we'll hear from one of the game wardens who was at the scene of this drowning. Plus, will the Confederate flag be history in South Carolina? We've got more on the debate. And we're hearing from the man accused of killing a San Francisco woman in what appeared to be a random shooting.
Live in high definition, caring, committed, proud of East Texas. You're watching East Texas News at 5.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. This afternoon, South Carolina's Senate voted to remove the Confederate flag from State House grounds. The 37-3 vote allows the state to remove the flag and the flagpole, where it flies as soon as it passes the House and is signed by Governor Nikki Haley. The bill must pass a 2/3 vote, which is likely to be held tomorrow. South Carolina's governor and others have called for the flag to be taken down in the wake of that deadly shooting at a predominantly black church in Charleston last month.
And we should pass this bill not because of that or because of the 8 members of his congregation who were murdered. And we shouldn't pass this bill because some national figures say so, or because we've been getting emails or pressure one way or the other. I am asking you to pass this bill as it stands today, not with the amendment, for a very simple reason, and it's because it's the right thing to do.
The bill isn't law yet. One senator is proposing an amendment that would let voters decide on removing the flag in a statewide referendum. Well, amid the growing calls to remove the Confederate flag, rallies across the South center on supporting it, hundreds of people raising the Confederate flag high gathered in Conway and Russellville, Arkansas over the weekend to represent what they call Southern heritage.
What my ancestors fought and died under, this flag. Confederate flag, the battle flag, doesn't just represent the people that do ugly things. You know, this is about, our flag predates those people.
The rebel flag isn't all about racism. It's about where we're from, our heritage, and how we're raised.
Well, not everyone agrees. Some people say the Confederate flag is a symbol of hatred and bigotry and doesn't have a place in public. 4 people are dead after a canoe accident over the weekend. Police say a family rented a canoe at the Houston County Lake near Grapeland yesterday afternoon. Juan Cantu, Amy Mendez, Antonio Gutierrez, and 6-year-old Sebastian Chavez have been identified as the 4 who drowned. They were supposed to return the canoe from where they rented it at 4:30 but never showed. Officials say none of the victims had life jackets on when they were found.
Water is an inherent danger. You know, you want to always have a life jacket. Wearing a life jacket is recommended, and you know, just extreme boater caution.
Officials believe the canoe that they rented may have taken on water or capsized. Authorities found it submerged near one of the victims. Well, Jacksonville Police Department has identified a man recovered from Lake Acker. Police say that Katie Dixon was pulled from the lake around 4:30 yesterday afternoon. Lake Acker is northwest of Jacksonville. Parks and Wildlife game wardens say that they are investigating if the man drowned. His body has been sent for an autopsy. New this afternoon, Bill Cosby admitted in a 2005 deposition that he obtained drugs with the intent of giving them to young women that he wanted to have sex with. He admitted giving a sedative to at least one woman. These documents were just made public this afternoon. The 77-year-old comedian was testifying under oath in a lawsuit filed by a former Temple University employee. Cosby settled that sexual abuse lawsuit for undisclosed terms back in 2006. More than a dozen women have since accused him of sexually assaulting them. An accused killer speaks. The man arrested in that murder on a San Francisco pier is talking from behind bars. At the same time, the shooting is reigniting the fiery debate over immigration. East Texas News' Cody Lillick explains.
And remember all the good she did.
Flowers and prayers in the exact spot where Kate Steinle was shot and killed on this San Francisco pier. While the admitted gunman, Francisco Sanchez, here in the U.S. illegally and deported 5 times, speaks out.
Did you shoot Kate Steinle, the lady who was down on Pier 14?
Yes.
The bright and energetic 32-year-old was gunned down Wednesday in front of her father.
Kate turned and said, help me, Dad.
Sanchez claims it was an accident, admitting he came to San Francisco knowing it's a sanctuary city where he wouldn't be pursued by law enforcement.
I'm looking for the Yanda restaurant or roofing.
And now finger pointing. Federal officials blame San Francisco authorities, saying they handed Sanchez over to them to face a local drug charge. But when the drug charges were dropped, local officials say they couldn't legally hold him.
They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime.
And presidential hopeful Donald Trump now doubling down on the immigration debate, posting on Twitter, "What do you say to the family of Catherine Steinle, killed because we can't secure our own border?" Steinle's family is choosing to focus on her memory.
She lived as much as 20 lives combined in that short 32 years.
Cody Lillick, East Texas News.
It's still unclear exactly where the gun used in that shooting came from. Sanchez claims that he found it under a bench wrapped in a T-shirt. A key update in the war on ISIS. President Obama talked with his national security team this afternoon on the current campaign to stop the terror group.
This will not be quick. This is a long-term campaign. ISIL is opportunistic and it is nimble.
Over the weekend, there was a wave of U.S.-led airstrikes in eastern Syria. The international coalition fighting ISIS called it one of the most sustained aerial operations carried out in the country. ISIS even acknowledged the strikes killed 10 of its fighters. More than 5,100 airstrikes have been carried out against extremist targets so far. Nearly 2,000 of those were in Syria, all to help ground forces. The ripple effect is starting. Financial markets are taking a hit after Greek citizens rejected an international bailout deal. Greece could now be out of money and some critical supplies within days. ATMs, for now, are allowing each citizen to withdraw a maximum of just $67 a day. Yet today, Greeks are still cheering. Experts say voting yes to the bailout deal would have imposed tougher austerity measures than the ones already in place.
Should Americans be concerned about what's happening in Greece? And the answer is yes, because it's going to create a lot of volatility in stock markets.
European leaders will hold a summit tomorrow to determine whether or not to relax demands on Greece while still giving desperately needed funding. The economic effects of Greece's financial bailout can also be seen right here in East Texas. The rejected bill has caused increased financial turmoil among Greece and other European nations, but one Tyler investment advisor says you may see a positive change at the gas pump, meaning gas prices could drop.
Oil prices are down about 5%. That's going to potentially impact gasoline prices a similar amount over the next few weeks. In addition, the lower oil prices may negatively affect the oil industry. So you may see some additional job losses in the oil patch as a result of the lower oil prices.
Despite the no vote, Greek officials say they are moving quickly to make deals with creditors to prevent a full economic collapse for the country. A harrowing end to that NASCAR race last night is raising new questions about crowd safety. Just seconds after Dale Earnhardt Jr. crossed the finish line to win the rain-delayed Coke 0400, drivers behind him began colliding. The crash sent Austin Dillon's number 3 Chevrolet Airborne, slamming him into the safety fence at the Daytona International Speedway. The impact at 200 miles an hour sent debris flying into the stands.
It happened so quick, man. You're just holding on and praying you get through it, get the race again.
Dillon and 13 fans suffered minor injuries. NASCAR drivers called the wreck one of the worst they had ever seen. Officials are now looking into whether they need to make any improvements to the safety netting protecting spectators. History at the World Cup. The women's soccer team ended the 16-year drought and brought home its newest title.
U.S. wins the 2015 Women's World Cup.
The 5-2 win over Japan was redemption after losing to the same team 4 years ago. Team captain Carly Lloyd scored 3 times just in the first 16 minutes. That's the fastest so-called hat trick in World Cup history.
We didn't come here to take second place. We came here to win it, and there was something different in the air these last few games with our team. I think we all believed, we all knew it, we felt it, and what a convincing win.
The team hoisted the trophy for a record 3rd time as soccer fans celebrated across the country. Congratulations, ladies. Well, still ahead on East Texas News at 5, an East Texas man shares his scare with K2 as it almost risked his life.
And maybe a shower or two over the next couple of days, but I think once we get to Thursday and continuing through the early part of next week, I think our rain chances are really low. So we may have to start watering those lawns here again pretty soon. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But first, our Grant Flannery neighborhood weather net stop at Costin Elementary School in Lufkin, where it only got up to 91 today, currently 89. We'll talk more about this in a few minutes. Stick around.
At 6, has the controversy over the Hawkins Jesus sign come to an end? What city officials have decided to do? Plus, is your grocery bill higher than normal? We'll look at why eggs have gotten so expensive. Coming up tonight on KLTV 7 News at 6. Storm Tracker Weather is sponsored by Dairy Queen. DQ. This is the stop sign of Texas.
Well, rivers and lakes and creeks and everything else here in East Texas, they're full, and some are overly full. But the rain that we've had in April and in May and also in June has really kind of given us the opportunity to have a less than hot summer, at least so far. Because anytime you get the ground that is saturated like this and you've got all the lakes and the rivers and everything full, it takes longer for that to heat up. And a dry air or a dry ground heats up very quickly. So we can kind of thank the rain and the moisture, at least at the surface, for keeping us cool here over the past several days, and will for the next few anyway. Let's look outside, and it really is kind of pretty. The shadows getting a little bit longer there on the square in downtown Tyler, but notice the flags still blowing. That breeze has been so nice out of the south. We've had high pressure to our east. We've got a trough kind of hanging out to the west of us, and all of that continues to bring in these southerly winds, and kind of in the moderate category today. And it's on the golf course earlier today, and Taylor and I were having some issues with the wind, as we always do, but when it's at our back, it always feels great. But I'll tell you what, the wind has been quite a blessing here lately. Storm Tracker Live Doppler radar is very quiet and should stay that way, even though there's a chance for rain tomorrow, and then on Wednesday, most of East Texas is going to stay dry during that time period. Temperature to 92 in Tyler and Longview, 94 in Lufkin, 91 in Crockett, also in Nacogdoches, Atlanta, Mount Pleasant, San Augustine, Center. But it's the temperature humidity index values. We've got 105 not only in Marshall but also in Crockett, 101 right now in Groveton and in Lufkin, but 99 Tyler and 101 Longview. That's what it feels like out there. So I guess you could say it's hot, but not as hot as it has been, or could be, that's for sure. Gordon Reed in Henderson, 90 degrees at his place right now. We've also got a 90 in Good Springs, 89 right now up at Lake Cypress Springs, 88 at Holly Lake Ranch, and 90 right now in Crockett. Pollen, well, trees 0, weeds 2, no ragweed, just weeds, 9 on the grass, that's moderate, and then 26-15 on the molds. That's just into the high category. So, forecast for tonight, we're going to call for partly cloudy, warm and humid conditions. However, once we get to the daybreak hour or so, it's going to be mostly cloudy for a little while, then become partly cloudy again. Going to drop down to about 76, so it's kind of warm. 92 tomorrow, but those heat index values in many locations near 100, maybe as high as 103, 104 in some spots. So still, be awfully careful out there. We kind of look at precision cast. It's quiet tonight, but then the clouds kind of build in during the early morning hours, so we'll start off mostly cloudy. Then again, a stray shower here or there during the afternoon. Again, most of us will stay dry. As we get into the overnight period into Wednesday morning, it becomes mostly cloudy again. By Wednesday afternoon, there's a chance that we could see 1 or 2 showers or thunder showers, but not many. Then as we get into Thursday morning, again, kind of a partly to mostly cloudy start to the day. So your forecast, 82 at 10, 76 in the morning, around 87 by lunchtime tomorrow. But notice those winds kind of holding up out of the south at least 10 to 15 miles per hour. 93 the high for Wednesday, and still just a 20% chance for afternoon rain. Then looking at 93, no rain on Thursday. And then that looks like it is going to be a trend as we look at the Storm Tracker 7-day forecast. Not putting any rain in the forecast Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. But then notice what that does, Jennifer. That pulls those high temperatures into the mid-90s during that time period. And if we don't see some rain around here in the next couple of weeks, we may start seeing more in the mid to upper 90s, which is what you kind of expect July to feel like.
Well, we haven't hit, well, I mean, we've made it to where it feels like triple digits.
But we're not anywhere close to those yet.
I'm liking that so far. Already in July. Thanks, Mark. Well, one Nacogdoches man is making it his mission to warn others against the dangers of K2. He says years of using synthetic marijuana put him in the hospital. East Texas News' Malcolm Hornsby has more on one man's push to save lives.
Spice, Black Mamba, Skunk, Red X. Those are just 4 of the nearly 450 combinations of synthetic marijuana, most commonly known as K2. The drug has been around for nearly 5 years and gained popularity because users feel it's a harmless substitute to marijuana, allowing them to bypass drug screenings. It's a trap Brandon Barlow says he fell into.
Everybody was doing it, and it didn't seem like it had any type of health effect to you. When you first started, it's awesome. It takes very little. It gets you really high. And it's so extreme, and it just shuts you down.
Barlow began using K2 in 2010 and says while he felt there were no apparent side effects, his family members could see the effect the drug was having.
I was blinded by my addiction. The downside of it that I didn't see was my loss of goals. I didn't want to work anymore. I didn't want to get out of my bed. All I wanted to do was smoke K2. That was it.
And while for many those symptoms would be enough to stop use of the drug, for Barlow, it took a more severe wake-up call.
I couldn't put thoughts together. My urine started to turn a really dark color, and I couldn't eat anymore. I was having to use it to go to sleep. I was having to use it to wake up. I was having to use it just to eat.
A friend showed Barlow a list of side effects from using K2, and after identifying with each symptom, he knew it was time to seek medical attention. It's been nearly a week since he was released from the hospital, and when asked what he's learned,
I learned that if you have any type of drug addiction problem, do not substitute it for anything at all. Go get the help. Clean and sober living is the way to go.
Malcolm Hornsby, East Texas News.
Barlow's fiancée is 12 weeks pregnant, and he says he wants to lead a sober life, not only for himself, but for his growing family. Well, your risk of dying from cancer is dropping. Coming up, we'll talk with East Texas News Med Team Dr. Ed Dominguez, who will explain this new government report. In Med Team News, Americans' risk of dying from cancer is falling, according to the CDC. Joining us now live via Skype from Methodist Dallas Medical Center is East Texas News Med Team Dr. Ed Dominguez. Hello, Dr. Ed.
Hi, Jennifer.
Well, Dr. Ed, experts say that the cancer death rate is going down regardless of sex or race.
And that's great news. This is something that I think a lot of people have thought was going to happen, and we know it's already happened. As of 2010, for example, with prostate cancer, the rates are going down. With other cancers, it's expected this year we're going to see either the peak or starting to see a decline in the rates of death from cervical, breast, colorectal, and lung cancer in the United States. And all of this really attests to the excellent research and application of early detection, some of the prevention issues that have been out there, and also some of the very aggressive therapies that have been deployed recently and approved by the FDA for treatment of some of these cancers.
Well, however, Dr. Ed, deaths are rising among the older population. Is that right?
Yeah, that is right, and that it almost is a paradox. We're seeing a decline in death rates, but the number of deaths is actually going up, mostly in the older population. And part of that is that when people are older, particularly men and African-American females, those rates still seem to be climbing. The cancers tend to be more aggressive in older people, and older folks are less likely to do well with the complications of therapy. So we still have to do a lot of focusing on prevention in that population. early detection, better therapy. But the one cancer that is eluding all of us, regardless of age, is melanoma. We talk about it a lot, Jennifer, but that's the most important cancer that is causing death right now that we can't get our hands around. So prevention is the key.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Ed.
You're welcome.
Still ahead, this South Dakota man is going for the gold in the National Senior Games. Keep it right here. A South Dakota centenarian taking part in this year's National Senior Games is playing to win. 101-year-old John Zilverberg is the oldest athlete in the competition. The retired rancher is competing in discus, shot put, javelin, and softball throw events. Silverberg says that he's always wanted to bring home gold medals. He took part in his first senior games back in 1985. The senior games will be held through July 15th in the Minneapolis area, and we'll be sure to let you know how he does. See?
Said he's 101?
101, has been doing it since 1985. So that just goes to show you that you can be young at heart for the rest of your life.
That's really,
I love that.
That's a good bit of advice.
Yeah, and stay active. And speaking of getting older, happy birthday to Mark. Go on his Facebook page, give him a big shout out, a big happy birthday.
Appreciate it.
Well, thanks for watching. Stay right here for the news at 6, and you can find the very latest news, weather, and sports 24/7 on our websites. Have a good night.
Let the news follow you. From exclusive web content to text and email alerts, get your news wherever you are.